Okay, so I just wanted to go over 3D shapes since we're having that project next. So remember, you need to make sure in your AutoCAD that you have workspace checked. You'll see it here. That'll give you the options to toggle between the 3 different workspaces. If you don't have that, you can come here to this little gear and you can select from the 3 different spaces here. What you'll do is you'll go into 3D Basics. What's it going to do is it's going to change the tool settings, not settings, options that are visible. They're all visible, or they're all usable, I should say, but it'll make it accessible and easier to understand what you're using initially until you get comfortable. Your draw toolbar is still here and your modify is still here. It'll change a little bit because these are all 2D tools. And now we're going to be working in more than just 2 planes. So when we do this, I've already mentioned before, if you hold your shift key down and push down on your mouse wheel, you can shift your view. You can also shift your view by hitting this little house that highlights when you bring your cursor up to it. Okay. If you hold down the mouse wheel, it'll move around your screen. And you can also use the view cube. All right. So if you're more comfortable with that, that's fine. You also have this panel over here that you can use for magnifying, for orbiting, for control. Okay. They call it pan. But what I want to do now is I just want to show you how to build your different shapes. So we'll start off with a cube. All right, and underneath the cube are all the different options. You're not going to use PolySolid. You're just going to use all these other 3Ds for your initial work. So we start with a box. Now on your sheet, I have you placing it in a specific location, and you notice on the screen here, it's asking for the first corner. So your first corner for it will be 0, 0, 0. So it's going to start out right at the nexus of all of your axes. So now it's the same as making just a square in 2D, but we want this one to be 4, tab 4. Now, as you can see, it wants me to give it a height because now we have the z-axis that we need to dictate. So in the z-axis, we're going to hit 4. So now we should have a fairly unified cube. Now, it's in wireframe like you've worked in before. However, you're going to want to play with conceptual. Later on, we add materials. You're going to play with realistic. That's the only one you're going to see the changes for the most part in. And I like to work in X-ray when I'm working in 3D a lot of times because I can see all of my lines and all the snap points rather easily. So I'm going to leave it in X-ray for right now. Here's my cube. The next one that you go to is the cylinder. And I have that at 12 comma. Okay. And if you noticed, it highlights the color of the axis. Now that we're using 3 axes, you can see the Y is green, the Z is blue, and the X is red. So when you input the numbers, you'll see red, green, blue. So again, it wants the radius. If you want to change it, come down here and select it if you don't want to divide by 2. Or you can hit D and enter. I'm going to stick with radius, and I want the diameter of the base to be 2 in this one, so I'm going to hit 1. And then again, I'll have to dictate its height, which I want it to be 6. Now, I'm not going to go through all of these, but that's how you will run. They will all run down this x-axis at a specific location that's dictated. Now, just so you're aware, when you select your different items, there is going to be different properties. So the properties panel is good to keep open because then you can look and see if what you've drawn is what you intended. So in this one, I want the diameter to be 2. My radius is 1. Good. I want my height to be 6, and the height is 6. Okay, so we're good there. Now, once you create all of your different shapes, all the way through torus, which is basically a donut, I'm going to want you to copy them. It's the same as a 2D entity. You'll type in copy. You'll grab a specific base point. And see, I like to keep mine straight, so I'm going to put it in ortho mode so it just goes straight in a linear fashion. So now that I have that, these will remain. These I will manipulate. So I want you to make some unique shapes. So as I walk through the different shapes, you will be placing them. So the first one doesn't use the cube and the cylinder. The first one uses the sphere and the torus, but I'm just going to make a sphere real quick so that I can show you what I want you to do. So when I select this, you can just use the move tool. Now, if you just type into move, it will just stay with 2D. Now, you may want to turn off your ortho at this point, and you see how now that since it's in X-ray, I can see that snap point. And you're going to snap the center of the sphere on the corner of your cube. Now, if it was in conceptual, it would be a lot harder for you, unless you were extremely comfortable, to get that endpoint. Now, in reality, I know that sphere is going to go to that endpoint, but it's visually not doing that, so it makes it a little bit more difficult. So then what I want you to do is I want you to subtract. So I'm going to subtract this circle, this sphere, from this box. So you're going to hit subtract. What do you want to subtract from? Which would be the box. Enter, because you can do multiple items. You can subtract from multiple items. So enter after that. And then what are you subtracting? And that will be the sphere. And you'll enter that. And it'll create this cutout. One thing to note is that once you create this awkward object, you're not going to have the same ability to manipulate it. So once you create this, if you notice, there's not really any pull points. It's just this awkward shape you have made. So just keep that in mind as you move forward, okay?